So, just watched Thor Love and Thunder in theaters. Well, it's kind of disappointing. It was still a really good movie, though. I love how two of the big main theories were false from a bunch of people that, people always theorize shit just from seeing something on a trailer and they're like, well, that kind of looks like that, so that's definitely going to happen. Two things that did not happen that were in the trailer that people said were going to happen. The trailer has Korg telling a bunch of kids a story about Thor, and everyone was like, oh, Thor's gonna die to God the Butcher. The second one was that Zeus was gonna get killed by Gore. That didn't happen either. And the third and main one was that people said that Gore's death scene was in the trailer, and that is when he's crying and he has a little bit of blood on his mouth. Well, his crying was mocking Valkyrie about her dead family and friends. So, yeah, good on you on all these theories that didn't turn out true, not even one. We get some screaming goats that are occasionally funny in this movie. Thor saves a planet, accidentally destroys a temple, and then they give him goats as a present, and they scream a lot. They're also giant. The Guardians of the Galaxy are in this movie. For a brief few minutes, they finally did something with the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I haven't watched that movie in years, but I was really excited when he got Yondu's shit. What's his name? I did not mean to press that. Sam Neill was in this? He was the one that played Odin? I did not notice. That's crazy. Sean Gunn, that's his name. He's in this movie briefly as the replacement Yondu. I was really excited in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 when he got it. That was probably one of my favorite parts of that movie. It's a really good movie. I might have to rewatch it to do a review on it. It's one of my favorite MCU movies. That and Avengers. Korg is confirmed gay in this movie. So I thought that was cool, but they don't do too much with it. It's just like at the very end of the movie. And this movie tries to show representation, but it fails. Like most movies do. Maybe it'll get better in the future. But their idea of representation is Korg saying he has dads, even though he's had a mom and a boyfriend that he didn't like, and that was a reoccurring joke in the movie he was introduced in, Ragnarok. Who cares if they retconned that, though? Or maybe they just didn't, maybe they forgot, or another thing, there was a whole Infinity War shit, so I think it's like, 8-9 years after Ragnarok, maybe more. So maybe they broke up and Korg's just not acknowledging it and saying that he has like 2 new dads or whatever. I don't think it was a total retcon. But I guess that was fine, but we never see them. And then they finally mentioned that Valkyrie is bisexual by saying she had a girlfriend. But it's like a 2-second scene. But at least we get to see Thor and Jane Foster kiss several times in this movie. But for the representation for the LGBT, it's just talking about it. They're still too scared to show it so far. We had one kiss in Internals, and that's it. Though we do see Korg and the very funny Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, because that's clearly what they were going for. Because Korg has a boyfriend, and his name is Dwayne. And he's a rock, just like Korg. He shows up for like 2 seconds, and he has a bit of a ridiculous looking mustache. But enough about the stupid representation in this movie that I didn't like, Could have been better. Let's talk about the actual plot. They never say why Jane Foster is worthy. In the comics, perfectly good reason for her being worthy. I've never liked Jane Foster in the MCU because she's just kind of bland. So she wasn't a big loss when she was gone from the series, in my opinion. She was gone for a few years, nobody cared. I mentioned her in Ragnarok just a few times as a funny joke that Thor lost his girlfriend. They briefly brought her back for Infinity War. She was in What If, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't the same actor. Might have been. And then they bring her back as Jane Foster, and she just dies. So really, what was the point? And they never mention why she's worthy. That's my biggest thing. She has cancer. Mjolnir calls out to her. She picks up Hammer. Hammer kills her slowly. Doesn't help with cancer. Wow, such a cool plot. Not. Could have been better. Thor does a kip up like Drew McIntyre during the first fight of the movie, which I thought was cool. I thought it was weird that Gore the God Butcherer only killed one god, though he killed a few others off screen. Zeus mentioned how he's killed a few no-name gods. And Thor himself says he killed the nicest god ever. Sif is finally mentioned in this movie. She shows up, loses an arm, isn't in it for the rest of the movie besides a scene where she's training a kid. Speaking of which, I thought it was hilarious that Thor couldn't get any armies to help him. Nobody wanted to help him. Couldn't get anybody to help him. Didn't even try and call the Guardians of the Galaxy. Or any of his old Avengers buddies. I know there's not too many left, but there are a few. Like Falcon, War Machine. I think that's about it. Ant-Man. Not people he's known as much and interacted with as much, but still people that were on his team and he's fought with. But he doesn't even acknowledge that. He's just like, well, Zeus didn't help us. That means literally nobody can. So he has a bunch of untrained children fight. I'm sure the parents of those children would be so happy if they found out about that. And then to fix that, I guess he just trains them later. They finally mentioned the Warriors 3 too, by dissing them and acting like they're not important characters. Though to be fair, it's Korg who does it, but it's still they who wrote the script, you know? Korg goes, oh, and that guy died, and that guy died, and who is that guy? To the one that had the biggest sacrifice. That makes sense. I'm gonna be honest, the only one's name I remember is Fandral. I know the Warriors 3, I've read a few comics here and there with them in it. But the only one I've really liked is Fandral, but I know the other two. I recognize them, they have recognizable faces, they're decent actors. They should have been used more. But they weren't, so they're forgettable. And Korg just wanted to bring it up. Gore the God Butcherer has a very weird motivation. His daughter died, and that's like his reason to kill every single god in the world because of one sucky god. He killed one of the nicest gods. I think that's pretty dumb that they had him kill one of the nicest gods. Even though he's evil and he's not thinking clearly, you think he would at least realize that. Thor says it himself. But I guess not. Later he becomes not evil because Thor says, you want to be loved like everyone else. And then he goes to be with his girlfriend that's dying. And then he brings his daughter back to life and Thor bonds with her. Pretty funny scene here and there. But it's at like the very end of the movie. Speaking of the end of the movie, they set up some post-credit shit that I doubt they'll follow through with. And if they do, it'll be a 3-minute scene. Zeus is alive and he's turning evil. Woo! Didn't you do the same shit with Mordo back in Doctor Strange 1? And from what I've seen, though I haven't seen Doctor Strange 2 yet, and I've tried to avoid spoilers as much as possible, but I've seen a few here and there. It's mostly about Doctor Strange and Scarlet Witch. But Mordo is in the movie. But I don't think it's the same universe one. Maybe it is. I still want a Guardians of the Galaxy 3 with Sean Gunn actually being used. Not showing up for a few seconds, barely doing anything, and having a joke about how he marries women on every planet he goes on. But Christian Bale was decent. He was a really good actor in some scenes, and in other scenes, he felt more like Jared Leto's Joker. It's not like an insult, just mannerisms and the way he acts. And just like some of the facial expressions just seemed like something Jared Leto's Joker would have done. And speaking of Jared Leto, I did make a video in the past, I don't know if I deleted it or not, where I talked about how Jared Leto was a Joker that I thought was overhated. I still don't think he's really a good Joker. But I want to clear things up real quick. I did find out about lots and lots and lots of pedophile and sexual assault allegations, so I don't really like him as a person anymore. So let's just pretend that video doesn't exist if I didn't delete it. Now back to this movie again. Valkyrie gets injured, and then I don't think we ever actually see her again. We do see Sif again. And we don't see Jane again since she dies. And Korg almost dying, that was shocking. I didn't think they were going to kill off one of their characters that, was so funny, so it wasn't too shocking. But I was like, oh shit, they just killed Korg? And then when he was brought back like seconds later, it's like, yeah, I didn't think that was going to happen. Why did I think that for a few seconds? There really wasn't that much to this movie. There is, a joke that was kind of like a Disney kids TV show in this, where, Korg says something, and then Thor says that exact thing. That happens in a lot of stuff like Lab Rats, where they'll be like, nobody says stuff like that, and then a person will walk in the room and then say that exact thing. They have that in like the beginning of the movie, which I thought was dumb. But overall, this is a pretty good movie. There's just not much to it. Thor tries to save some children. Heimdall has a son that they haven't talked about, but he's here now. So I guess that's cool. It'll be cool if he becomes a future replacement for Heimdall in the future, since they are training him. If the MCU's still alive by then, but since it's making millions and billions of dollars, they got all their Disney Plus shows, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Though I guarantee a lot of characters will be forgotten. Speaking of forgotten characters, they brought back 2 of them for one scene each. Darcy is back. She was in Thor 2, and that was it. She was one of my favorite characters. She had a brief appearance and was kind of there in the Scarlet Witch show, but she didn't do too much. But she was in every episode, so I guess there's that. And in this, she shows up, eats some Flaming Hot Cheetos, and says Jane has cancer. Eric shows up for one scene and says Jane has cancer. And then he's gone. Which is a shame, because I really liked Eric. And he did have a pretty big role in the Avengers 1, which is one of my favorite movies. So I never forgot about him. But yeah, they have their brief appearance here. We have a reenactment of the same scene from Thor Ragnarok, because I guess they thought it was funny the first time. It was funny this time too, but it's not super hilarious. I don't know why they brought it back. Thor Ragnarok, Loki pretends to be Odin because Odin went missing or whatever. And he puts on this little play to make Thor look kinda bad. And they do that in this movie. But it's not to make Thor look bad. And Loki's dead. So I don't get why they brought this back. And it's just a short scene of a scene from Ragnarok, so this might be a reoccurring thing if we do get a fifth Thor movie. I don't know why though. And we get a new actor in this one though. Someone to play Hela. Which I'm glad they finally mentioned Hela exists. Because I don't think she was in What If. I'm pretty sure I criticized it because the whole episode about Thor, being an only child, and they didn't mention Hela. They were just like, oh yeah, Loki. Loki's just his friend now in this universe. And he's not his brother. And then that was that. But yeah, that's about it.